and these horses are walking through this terrible traffic to go back to the stables. And this regulation is in place and it's supposed to be protecting them, but it points to the impossibility of operating this industry humanely. It's just a completely flawed, senseless regulation that's not protecting them at all.
When did you get involved in this issue? What was the deciding factor, or how did you become interested in this specific issue?
I've been involved in animal rights for sometime in the end of the 80s. And this was one of the first issues that I became aware of, because there was an organization called Carriage Horse Action Committee, which is no longer in operation. And it was headed by a woman named Peggy Parker. And at that time, she was trying to get better regulations for the horses. And she managed to, with Local Law 89, not too much better than they are now, but it seemed to be all that could be done at the time. And then in that period of time, from 1989 to 1994, there was a sunset clause on that legislation. And so it either had to be renewed or new legislation had to be put in place. So activity, a lot of people were quite aware of it, including the media. There were editorials. There was a lot of attention. Big dispute in the city council. There were people who were against the horses and for the horses. So I became involved back then, but I think about the horses, I didn't really know that much about the horses. I'm a city person. I've gotten to know a lot more about horses than I ever did, just from study and from observing and knowing people who rescue them and so forth. But the horses always look to be like the underdog, and that's what really appealed to me about them. They look so sad. You know, they're like Catherine likes to call them horse slaves, you know, which they really are. They don't have any choice about what they do. They're stuck between the shafts of their carriage for as long as they're out. Sometimes they get double shifted, and that's very, very difficult to prove, which means that the same horse can be working that first 9-hour shift, and then he's worked again, you know, and he's not supposed to. The whole industry is really out of control as far as we're concerned. That's why we're out here virtually every Saturday, weather permitting, and we've gotten just tons of signatures. We've gotten so many signatures. I counted them recently. We have about 13,300 signatures. People ask us, how many signatures do you need? It's not a matter of how many we need. We're looking for that right time, right opportunity to present them to the mayor at a press conference perhaps, or to the city council. Periodically we'll show these signatures to the city council. They represent every state besides New York City. They represent every state in the nation and 43 countries. And we think that's pretty amazing. I mean, people come over to us and they say, we can't stand to be around the hack line. We can't stand to see these horses. It breaks our heart. And then we see you guys, and we're so glad that somebody is doing something about this. The city of New York, the mayor, for instance, Mayor Bloomberg, has said after the January 2nd, 2006 accident, he said, this is a tourist attraction, and I'm not doing anything about the horses. We really feel that Mayor Bloomberg is not well informed. And it's very difficult to try to reach somebody in his office, and certainly to reach him, but we're trying. And we hope that we can find that somebody in his office and educate them about this, because Bloomberg's own daughter is an equestrian. I mean, certainly if she were to take a trip along Central Park South, she would be amazed. Maybe she doesn't come into the city, I don't know. But anybody who cares about horses has to care about the way these horses are treated.
Were there any accidents or anything that happened to the horses that also stimulated consciousness about the dangers?
There were 2 recent accidents this summer. One was on June 2nd, and it was actually not reported by the media. So if it's not reported in the media, it might as well not have happened. But interestingly enough, a very astute bystander saw it happen, and he sent the great photos to a blog, Gothamist, the Gothamist blog. He sent it to them, and I found out about it very quickly. What happened was the horse was spooked, and that happens very often. These horses are herd animals, they're prey animals, and they get spooked easily. So the horse was spooked around 7th Avenue in the 50s, and he ran out of control, and at 54th Street he was hit by an SUV. So that was one accident. And on July 4th, there was another accident, and this actually was reported in the media. And it happened around here, around 5th Avenue and Central Park South. And this horse actually also spooked, and he was hit by a taxi, and he also hit a motorcyclist. The guy was not hurt badly, but the horse was hurt pretty badly. There are pictures on the board that you can see, and his leg is very bloody. I don't know what's happened to that horse. We've been trying to find out. They say that he's been retired from the industry, but it's possible they may have sent him to auction. I don't know. And it's very hard to get information from the Department of Health because, frankly, they're pretty incompetent. They have maybe somewhere over 200 horses in the industry. They have 68 medallions, by the way. 68 medallions means 68 carriages. But they have over 200 horses. And there's a big turnover when I've compared lists every 6 months. Now, why is that? Where do these horses go? Now, when Peggy Parker, who I mentioned earlier, was involved with this, and she's since retired. You know, she's living in West Virginia now. But she used to, she had done a lot of research over the past 10 years, and this was prior to computers. And she determined that the average working life of a carriage horse was only 4 years on the streets of New York.
Catherine, you have to leave?
I have to leave now. I'm going to go back to our tabling area over there to gather a few more signatures for the petition.
So thank you so much, Catherine. Bye. We'll see you later. Elizabeth, I was wondering if there were a ban and we had no more horse-drawn carriages and horses doing this, what would happen to the horses? Wouldn't they get sent to slaughter?
A lot of people ask that question. We have legislation on our website that actually calls for a 2-year phase-out of the industry. And in that time, we would hope that that we could help to find horses a good home, and that people could find other means of employment. But what I like to say to people who ask that question, like, won't the horses go to slaughter? I like to say to them, where do you think the horses are going now? People don't realize that probably many of these horses do go to slaughter. And it's just not something that's publicized or even known, and not records that are kept by the Department of Health. The United States slaughtered over 100,000 horses last year for the foreign dinner plate. We don't eat horse in this country, but they certainly do in countries like France, Italy, Belgium, Japan. So these horses go over there, and the fact that these are foreign-owned slaughterhouses in the United States is really pretty amazing too. The only thing that's going to stop that is federal legislation, which we have been trying to pass.
Elizabeth, is the horse carriage industry banned anyplace else in the United States?
Yes, it actually is banned in several cities in the United States, and you could see those cities on the website of www.nycanimals.org. But I think more importantly, it's banned in cities that are very equivalent to New York City as tourist attractions, namely London, Paris, Toronto, and even Beijing.